Hello friends, let's continue with the lectures of the renal physiology. And today our topic for the discussion is reabsorption and secretion. Okay, so these are the one of the major processes in the formation of the urine. Now in our previous lecture we have discussion on the glomerular filtration. That means the how the plasma filtered through the glomerular membrane, and that is the first step in the formation of the urine. Now here in this discussion, we have to know how that filtered that will be transported through the tubules, it will get a reabsorbed, and what is the secretion, certain substance that are secreted in the different part of the nephrons. So let's start with the today's topic, that is tubular reabsorption and the secretion. Okay. So the tubular reabsorption is quantitatively large and highly selective, unlike that of the glomerular filtration, that is a relatively non-selective. Okay. Though the glomerular filtration is large, but it is a non-selective. Non-selective in the sense that as far as the glomerular filtration is concerned, all the substance within the plasma except the plasma proteins, all that can be filtered through the membrane, and that filtration is mainly dependent on the Starling's forces. Okay. But here as far as the tubular reabsorption is concerned, okay, reabsorption of various substance through the various part of the nephron, it will depend on the presence of the transport proteins, okay, active, passive, or like that, and also the concentration gradient. Okay. So the tubular reabsorption, it is highly selective, that will maintain the concentration of particular substance within the blood. Okay. So just look at this uh, table, okay, that will show the filtration, reabsorption, and the excretion rate of various substance by the kidney. Okay, just you will get idea about the various substance. Okay, so status of the various substance once they are within the renal tubules. Okay, so as far as the glucose is concerned, okay, that is filtered at this rate, and all the glucose that is filtered through the membrane and poured into the renal tubules, all it is going to be reabsorbed again back to the blood. Okay, so 100% glucose are a reabsorbed, okay, that are filtered. Then second is the bicarbonate. So bicarbonate is also near to the 100%, it will be reabsorbed. Only little, very minute amount of the bicarbonate will be excreted. Otherwise, maximum will be reabsorbed again by the renal tubules and given back to the blood. Okay. Then the sodium, again more than 99% of the sodium that has been filtered, it will be reabsorbed. Only little will be excreted. Then comes the chloride, it is almost more than 99% will be reabsorbed. Then the potassium, its reabsorption, it is around less than 90%. Okay, because as far as the reabsorption is concerned, in addition to reabsorption, there is also secretion of the potassium at certain part of the nephron. Okay, so it will decrease overall its reabsorption. So it is less than 90%, around 88%. Okay. Then the urea, it is around 50% of filtered urea is excreted and 50% are reabsorbed. Okay, but as far as the creatinine is concerned, that is the metabolic waste product, and it is completely excreted by the kidney. That means there is a no net reabsorption of any of the creatinine product, that is completely excreted by the kidney. So this figure just show the basics of this filtration, reabsorption, and the secretion. So just look at this. The first step in the urine formation is the filtration through the membrane. Okay, that is a comparatively non-selective. Okay, that will depend on the Starling's forces. But as comes the reabsorption and the secretion, they are quite selective. So you can see here, this is the proximal tubules where this arrow, this light blue arrow shows the water reabsorption. Okay, then this dark blue arrow shows the solute reabsorption. Okay, so water and solutes both are maximally reabsorbed from the proximal tubules. In addition to that, there is also secretion. This yellow arrow shows the secretion of certain substance in the proximal tubules. Okay, then comes the loop of the Henle, where the descending portion, where this arrow shows the water reabsorption. So this part of the loop, it is comparatively or virtually not permeable to the solute. Okay, so the solutes are not going to be reabsorbed from here. Then coming to the ascending portion of the loop of the Henle, where this arrow shows the reabsorption of the solutes. Okay, so again the water reabsorption will be not seen here. So this ascending loop, it is virtually impermeable to the water. So it is selectively permeable to the solutes only. Okay, then again comes the distal tubules. Early portion of distal tubules, it shows the reabsorption of solutes only, no water reabsorption again. Okay, then comes the later portion of the distal tubules, that shows the secretion of the certain substance, but there is a little reabsorption of the solute. Okay, but you can see here this arrow, that shows the water reabsorption, but here this is bounded by a broken lines. Okay, there is a no solid line, so this broken line shows the variable rate. Okay, so here the water reabsorption here and the water reabsorption here, it will be depend on the certain factors, mainly the presence of the antidiuretic hormone. Okay, so that is a variable rate of the water reabsorption. Again, there is a secretion here with the reabsorption many of the solutes, and again here also the water reabsorption will be variable depending on the presence of the ADH. Okay, so by this you can see that unlike the glomerular filtration that is comparatively selective or non-selective, but this reabsorption and secretion are highly selective. So coming to the tubular reabsorption, so it occurs as the filtrate flow through the tubular lumen. Okay, so as the glomerular filtrate, it will reach to the tubular lumen from the proximal tubule itself, the reabsorption of the various substance will begin. Okay, and this reabsorption occurs because of these various mechanisms. Okay, so there are various different mechanisms that are operating in the different part of the renal tubules for the different substances to be reabsorbed. Okay, so the three basic mechanisms that will cause the reabsorption, okay, or one is the active transport mechanism, that may be a primary active or a secondary active. Okay, then the diffusion or the passive transport mechanism, and third broad mechanism, it is the osmosis. Okay, so that is mainly for the water. Okay, so all these terms you have been taught with the general physiology, but still we will learn here in brief related to the renal physiology. Okay, so these are the three broad mechanisms that will operate for the reabsorption. So now look at this figure that will show the various mechanisms and the various pathways. Okay, so see here this portion, it is the assume that there is a tubular lumen. Okay, where the filtrate will be transported through this tubular lumen. Okay, and these lumen are bounded by the walls that are containing the renal epithelial cell. So this is a renal epithelial cell. Okay, then here are the blood vessels, peritubular capillaries. Okay, where this substance will be reabsorbed and transported. Okay, and in between this renal tubules and this peritubular capillary, okay, the space that is known as the interstitium. So this is a renal interstitium. Okay, so now for the reabsorption there are two steps. It is a two-step mechanism. Okay, so one step for the reabsorption of substance is transport of substance from the lumen, this tubular lumen, to the renal interstitium. That is the first step. Okay, and second step is transport of this substance from the interstitium to the blood. Okay, so these two steps will complete the reabsorption. Okay, and this includes the various mechanism. Okay, so the first step, transport of the substance from this tubular lumen into the renal interstitium, it will be operated via these three basic mechanisms. Either the substance are moved here via this active transport mechanism, or via the passive transport mechanism, that is diffusion. Okay, that is mainly for the solutes, and third mechanism, that is for the movement of water, that is by the osmosis. Okay, so these three basic mechanisms operate to transport the substance from this tubular lumen to the interstitium. So that is the first step. Okay, and second step, that will include the transport of substance from here, renal interstitium, to the blood. Okay, so that is via the bulk flow, that is via the ultrafiltration, as you have seen in the glomerular filtration. Okay, so this transport, it will depend on the Starling's forces. Okay, across this tubular lumen or this capillary lumen, or across this renal interstitium. That means the hydrostatic pressure or the colloid osmotic pressure present across this and this. Okay, so there is a ultrafiltration of the substance from here to here. Okay, now again this movement, transport of the substance or the reabsorption, mainly from the tubular lumen to this renal interstitium, it is via two paths. There are two pathways, okay, through which the first step will be seen. That means transport of substance from here to here will occur. Okay, so one step or one path, it is the paracellular pathway. That means transport of substance from the tubular lumen into the renal interstitium via this pathway, that includes the movement of substance through the junction between the two neighboring epithelial cell. Okay, so this is the one epithelial cell and this is the another renal epithelial cell. So transport of substance through this junction of this renal epithelial cell across the paracellular region, it is known as a paracellular pathway. Okay, and that is basically via the passive transport mechanism. Okay, so many of the solutes are transported via this paracellular pathway. Okay, and another most important pathway, it is the transcellular pathway. Okay, where initially the transport of substance will be from the tubular lumen into the cell, into the within the cell. Okay, so that is the one, and then that substance will be transported from the cell then to the renal interstitium. Okay, so here the substance are transported through the cells, so that's why it is called as the transcellular pathway. Okay, so the most of the solids are transported via this transcellular pathway, mainly the sodium. Okay, so first will be transported into the cell and then into the renal interstitium, and then there will be a bulk flow. So clear? So here you have to learn the three things. Okay, one thing is the reabsorption is via two-step mechanism. First step is from a tubular lumen to the renal interstitium, and then second step is from a interstitium to the peritubular capillary, that means into the blood. Okay, second thing that you have to see here is various mechanisms that are operating. So that are active, passive, and the osmosis. So these are the three basic mechanisms that are operating to have a transport of substance from here to here. And third thing that you have to see is the two important pathways that will transport the substance into the renal interstitium. One is the transcellular pathway, there is a major pathway, and second it is the paracellular pathway. So clear? So this is the basics of the various mechanisms and various pathways that are causing the reabsorption of various substances. So this flowchart just show the various pathways, the various mechanism, active, passive, and the osmosis. Okay, so these just take for example, not all the substance how they are reabsorbed that are given here. Okay, these are just example. So the most important substance that has been transported is the sodium. Okay, because the sodium are present in large amount within the renal tubules in the filtrate. Most of all the other substances that are transported secondarily to the sodium. So it is mandatory to have a detail about the sodium reabsorption. Okay, so just by this chart you can know about the various mechanism. So sodium that are reabsorbed mainly via the active mechanisms, primary active or a secondary active mechanism. Okay, so that is the sodium reabsorption. So once the sodium are reabsorbed, secondarily there will be a water osmosis, because the sodium reabsorption it will decrease the osmolarity, so it will increase the water content. So this water will diffuse, it will move, okay, across the osmotic gradient. And because the sodium and water that are getting reabsorbed, so chloride concentration will increase. Okay, because most of the positive ions will be reabsorbed, with that the water is also reabsorbed, so it will cause a net increase in the negative ions. So mainly the important negative ions present here, it is the chloride, so it will increase the luminal chloride concentration. Okay, so this is the one. And second thing, as the sodium are reabsorbed, so that will also increase the negative potential in the lumen, because the sodium, so most of the sodium that are positive will be reabsorbed, so it will increase the negative ions within the lumen. Okay, so both these will increase the chloride concentration, so the chloride will passively transported along its concentration gradient from the tubular lumen to the renal interstitium. Okay, so this is the active mechanism, this is the passive mechanism, and here it is the osmosis. Okay, and with this sodium and water movement, the urea concentration will also increase in the tubular lumen. Okay, because initially urea is not reabsorbed from the proximal tubule, so this concentration will increase. So further the increased urea concentration will also cause a concentration gradient for that urea, and the urea will also passively move from the renal lumen to the interstitium. Okay, so this shows the basic three mechanisms: active mechanism, passive mechanism, and the osmosis. So we have to learn for the different substance in detail about this. And then brief about the tubular secretion. So the tubular reabsorption, it is from a tubular lumen to the renal interstitium and then to the blood vessel. But secretion, it is in the opposite direction. That means here the substance are transported from the capillary lumen to the interstitium, and then from the renal interstitium then to the tubular lumen. So it is in the opposite direction. So first from the peritubular capillary into the interstitium, and then through the tubular epithelial cells or a paracellular pathway by active or passive transport into the tubular lumen. Okay, so the mechanisms that are working here, it is opposite to that of that. Okay, that of the reabsorption. So the certain substances that are usually secreted into the lumen, that are potassium, hydrogen ions, and certain organic acids and the bases. Now the two important terms to be understood here, one is a transport maximum, that is a TM, and another one it is a threshold, renal threshold. So transport maximum, it is the maximum capacity of a renal tubules, okay, to transport, that means to either reabsorb or secrete any particular solute. And this transport maximum depends on the filtered load of that particular substance, that means the concentration of that substance in the tubular fluid, okay. And when the concentration of that substance in the tubular fluid, that means the filtered load, it is beyond the transport maximum, then that particular renal tubules or the nephrons are called as a saturated. That means beyond that level there will be no appreciable increase in the transport, that is the reabsorption or secretion of that particular solute. And on the other hand, renal threshold, threshold means it is a concentration of any solute in the plasma, okay, at or beyond which that solute will first appear in the urine, or its appearance is a more in amount than its normal concentration. So that is a renal threshold. So that will depend on the plasma concentration. So we will better understand these two terms by this graph. Okay. So this graph shows the relation between the plasma glucose concentration and its filtered load with its reabsorption and the excretion in the urine. Now you know the plasma glucose, normal blood glucose level in the adult person is 100 to 140 milligram per deciliter, okay, and it will increase in case of the diabetes mellitus. So now just look at this. This shows the plasma glucose concentration, and this shows the glucose filtered load, reabsorption or the secretion, okay, in at the rate of milligram per minute. Now you see, as the plasma glucose concentration is increasing, as the plasma glucose concentration increase, there will be also increase in the filtered load. So this red line shows the filtered load of the glucose. So here from a 0, as the glucose concentration will increase, its filtered load will also increase proportionality. Okay. With that, you can see this line, that is a blue line, that is showing the reabsorption rate, transport of the that glucose. So now as the filtered load will increase up to certain limit, the reabsorption rate is also increasing proportionality. But as the transport maximum of that particular substance is reached, beyond that the reabsorption line, you can see it will become straight. There will be no further reabsorption. Beyond that there will be no further reabsorption. So this is the transport maximum. Okay. And on the other hand, threshold means at the plasma concentration at which the glucose will first appear in the urine. Till this the glucose will absent in the urine. So normally glucose must be absent in the urine. But as the glucose concentration reach to the threshold level, here it is around 200 milligram per deciliter. At this plasma concentration, the filtered glucose will not be reabsorbed. All some glucose will appear in the urine. So this shows, green line shows the appearance of the urine in the appearance of the glucose in the urine. Okay. So now the transport maximum and the threshold level are quite different. Okay. So transport maximum, it is when all the nephrons or the renal tubules are being saturated. Okay. But it is not show for this threshold level. Okay. Threshold level will come earlier than the transport maximum. So another thing that I want to tell you, that not all the nephrons have a transport maximum is same. Okay. They are having a different transport maximum. That means certain nephrons reach to the transport maximum earlier, but many of the other nephrons are still reabsorbing that particular solutes completely. Okay. So renal threshold, it will reach earlier than the transport maximum, because at the renal threshold some of the nephrons have come to their transport maximum. So they will cause the appearance of the glucose in the urine, but not all the nephrons are still in a transport maximum. Okay. But at the transport maximum, that is much higher than the threshold. So threshold is here around 200. For the glucose transport maximum, it is 300 or beyond that milligram percent. Okay. So at this level, all the nephrons now being saturated. That means they are not able to reabsorb glucose beyond that level. Okay. So at around 300 milligram percent of the glucose concentration, or the filtered load of glucose, that is around 375 milligram per minute, at that level the transport maximum will reach for the glucose, and there will be no further reabsorption of the glucose. Okay. So threshold will depend on the plasma glucose concentration, but the transport maximum depends on plasma concentration of that particular solute as well as the filtered load. That is more important. Okay. So transport maximum, it is equal to plasma concentration into the GFR. Okay. So this is about the transport maximum and the threshold. Then certain about the renal handling of the substance. That means the status of the various substance when they are passing through the glomerular membrane or the tubules. So first figure shows here is the filtration through the membrane, and then these substances are passing through the tubules. Okay, so this arrow shows the filtered substance are not reabsorbed or secreted at all. Okay, so जो भी substance यहाँ पे filter होंगे उसी हालत में they will be excreted via the urine, that are not going to be reabsorbed, there is a no secretion. Okay, so इस तरह के substance का जो filtration है GFR है, it is equal to that of the renal clearance. That means renal clearance जितना है उतना है उसका GFR है. Okay, so this substance example is the inulin. Inulin, if you are injecting, then all the inulin will be filtered and none of the inulin will be reabsorbed again, or it will be not secreted. So it will be filtered as it is. So here the GFR, it will be equal to the renal clearance of the inulin. Okay. Second figure shows the substance that are filtered easily. Okay, but many of them will be reabsorbed again, and certain will be excreted. Okay. So partial they are reabsorbed and partial they are excreted as it is. Okay, so here the renal clearance of that substance will be less than that of the GFR. Okay, so important are the sodium, chloride, most of the substances that are getting reabsorbed, whose renal clearance will be much less than that of the GFR. Then certain substances that are getting easily filtered, but 100% they will be reabsorbed. There will be no secretion or other secretion, and neither there will be excretion. Okay, so examples are the amino acids, the glucose. Normally they are 100% reabsorbed. Okay, so its renal clearance will be 0. Then the certain substances that are filtered but they are not reabsorbed, that are not going to reabsorb, but at a certain level they are secreted also. Okay, so here this will be, here the GFR will be renal clearance will be much higher than the GFR. Okay, so as for example the creatinine or the para-aminobutyric acid that are not reabsorbed at all. Then certain substances that are filtered and then partially they are reabsorbed, and with that they are also secreted. Okay, so here the renal clearance will depend on the status of this difference between this reabsorption and the secretion. And finally the last one is certain substance they are not filtered but they are secreted only. Okay, so again the example is para-aminobutyric acid, that is secreted only here. Okay, most of the times, so whose renal clearance will be highest, it will be much more than the GFR. So this is in brief about the renal handling. And secretion of the various substances along the different part of the nephron. First we'll discuss on the transport of various substances across the proximal tubules. So transport across the proximal tubules includes the reabsorption of most of the filtrate. Maximum filtrate are reabsorbed from the proximal tubules. Okay, so look at this, approximately 65% of the filtered water, sodium, chloride, potassium, and many of the other solutes will be reabsorbed from a proximal tubules only. Okay, and almost all the glucose and amino acids that are filtered by the glomerulus, they will be reabsorbed from the proximal tubules. Okay, so you can see that the proximal tubules, though as far as the length is concerned, it is relatively shorter than the other tubules, but it will reabsorb maximum of the substance comparing to the other renal tubules. Okay, now as I told, the maximum of the tubular filtrate that are been reabsorbed from the proximal tubules. Now though the proximal tubular length, it is 1/3 of the total length of the nephron, but it reabsorbs approximately 3/4 of the total reabsorption. Okay, now this is because of the unique characteristic of the proximal tubular epithelial cell. So you can see this figure, so this is the proximal tubular cell. Okay, so now the certain unique characteristic that are present here, unlike other cells. Okay, one is the proximal tubule cells are highly metabolically active cells. Okay, second thing, these cells containing large number of the mitochondria in comparison with the other cells of the renal tubules. Okay, so because of the large number of mitochondria, it will provide a large amount of the energy. Now you know that the mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. Okay, so for the various transport mechanism across this membrane, this mitochondria will continuously provide the energy. Now another important unique feature of this proximal tubular cell is its membrane. Okay, you can see these are the membrane across the apical border, and these are the membrane across the basolateral membrane. Okay. So now, unlike other tubular cells, this portion of the membrane, apical border, it is not a plane, it is not a smooth. Okay, it is a folded. You can see these are the foldings. Okay, so these projections are known as a microvilli. So this type of number of the microvilli are present in the proximal tubular cells only. Okay. So because of this, the border, it will look like a brush. So this border is also known as a brush border. So now these foldings, this microvilli, basically it will increase the surface area of this membrane of the proximal tubular cell. So because of increase in the surface area, it will also have a large number of the protein channels. Okay, so this will contain large number of the protein channels through which the various substance can be transported. Okay, so these unique features are present in the proximal tubules, unlike that of the other cell. One is this highly metabolic activity. Second are this large number of mitochondria. Then this brush border will increase the surface area, and that contains the large number of the transport proteins. So now starting with the sodium reabsorption, because it is the most important solutes to be reabsorbed, and most of other are reabsorbed secondary to that. So we'll discuss in detail about the mechanism of the sodium reabsorption. Okay, so sodium reabsorption, it is showing a different mechanism in the early portion of the proximal tubules and in the late portion of the proximal tubules. Okay, so we'll discuss in a two portion, first in the early portion of the proximal tubules and then in the late portion. Okay, so in the early portion of the proximal tubules, sodium, it is reabsorbed by a two mechanism. Okay, one is a co-transport mechanism, where the sodium, it is reabsorbed by a protein channel with the any other organic solutes, maybe it a glucose or the amino acid, or it may be a phosphate. So it is the co-transport. And second mechanism for the sodium reabsorption, it is a sodium hydrogen antiporter or a sodium hydrogen exchanger, where the sodium will be reabsorbed in exchange with the hydrogen ions. Okay, and in the late proximal tubules, the sodiums are mainly reabsorbed via chloride driven transport mechanism. Okay, across the cell, that may include both the pathways, transcellular or the paracellular pathway. Okay, so we'll discuss in detail. So first, see in the early proximal tubules how the sodiums are getting reabsorbed. So this is a tubular lumen where the sodiums are filtered and transported. Okay, these are the renal epithelial cell of the proximal tubules, and here is the interstitial fluid, and then it will be the blood vessels here. So for first step in the reabsorption sodium is that this mechanism that is operating across the basolateral membrane. So this is known as a basolateral membrane, and this is known as a luminal or apical membrane. Okay, so first here the mechanism operating across the basolateral membrane for the sodium. So it is a sodium potassium ATPase pump that you all are aware. Okay, so this pump is always operating. Okay, it is continuous at a resting state mainly. So that will cause extrusion of sodium to 3 sodium, and it will cause entry of the 2 potassium. Okay, so this sodium potassium ATPase pump here, it will decrease the concentration of sodium here. Okay, in within the cell. So because of decreased concentration of sodium here and large amount of the sodium present in the lumen, so it will create a concentration gradient from here to here. So now comes here the co-transport channel, where there is a protein which is having 2 binding site, one for a sodium and another site, maybe it for a glucose, or maybe it for amino acid, or maybe it for a phosphate. Okay, so here the sodium, it will bind with this transport protein with the glucose or the amino acid, and both that will be transported into the cell along the concentration gradient. Okay, so in this way the sodium will be reabsorbed via this co-transport mechanism from the tubular lumen to here, and then from here, from the cell, it will be transported into the interstitium via this mechanism. Okay, so this is the co-transport channel for the transport of the sodium. With that, you can also see the glucose and amino acid reabsorption. Okay. Second is the counter transport or the antiporter that is operating along the proximal tubular cell in the early portion. Okay, so here again there is a co-transport protein, a counter transport protein that will cause the transport of sodium from the tubular lumen into the cells, and in that exchange it will give out the hydrogen ions. So that will secrete the hydrogen ion into the tubular lumen. Okay, so this is a sodium hydrogen exchanger system or a antiporter or a counter transport. So again here the initially you will see this sodium ATPase pump, it will decrease the sodium concentration here, and then the sodium will move via this channel. Okay, and the hydrogen ions that are secreted here, that are basically formed within the cell from the carbonic acid. That carbonic acid, it is because of the combination of CO2 with the H2O. Okay, and that H2CO3, it will dissociate into the HCO3 and the H plus, and H plus will be secreted by the proximal tubules, and the HCO3 that has been formed, it will be reabsorbed. So this shows the two basic mechanism for the sodium transport in the early proximal tubules. One is a core transport, and second mechanism, it is a counter transport. Then coming to the late portion of the proximal tubules, where the sodiums are transported via the chloride driven channels. Okay, so now we have seen in the early portion the sodiums are reabsorbed with that glucose amino acids that are reabsorbed, but the chlorides are not reabsorbed in the early portion. Okay, so as the fluid filtrate will reach to the late portion of the proximal tubules, okay, the chloride concentration will be much higher, so negativity will increase because the sodiums are reabsorbed maximally. Okay, so this create a concentration gradient for the chloride. So chloride are more here in the lumen, but they are less in the renal interstitium. So chloride will passively flow through the paracellular pathway. That is the one thing. Okay, and because the chloride will leave here, so it will again decrease the negativity and increase the positivity. So the sodium concentration will also increase here. So with that, the sodium will also secondarily move through this paracellular pathway. So in this way, the sodium and chloride will be diffused into the renal interstitium via this paracellular pathway. Okay, and second is the parallel running of these channels. Okay, so one is a sodium hydrogen exchanger here, so that will transport the sodium here, and then it will move the sodium into renal interstitium. Okay, and for the chloride, parallelly again the antiporter, where the chloride is moved into the cells from the lumen and exchanged to the any of the anions. Okay, so in this way again the sodium and the chloride will be transported into the cell and then into the renal interstitium, so that is via transcellular pathway. Okay, so this is the mechanism, paracellular and the transcellular, for the sodium and chloride reabsorption into the late portion of a proximal tubule. Then coming to the water reabsorption, so as you know, the water will be moved via by the osmosis. So now till now we have seen that the sodium and the chloride, they will be transported into the renal interstitium. Okay, they will be reabsorbed from lumen to the here. So this will decrease the osmolarity here within the tubular lumen. This is a lumen. Okay, it will decrease the osmolarity here, and it will increase the osmolarity here. Okay, so it will create a concentration gradient for the water. Okay, so here the water will be reabsorbed through these proximal tubules by the osmosis, that is in response to the transtubular osmotic gradient that is created by the solute reabsorption initially. Okay, so in this way the more than 65% of the water will get reabsorbed by this osmosis, okay, in the proximal tubules. So this completes the reabsorption of the various substance from the proximal tubule. Now coming to the in brief about the secretions in the proximal tubules. Okay, so certain organic acids and the bases that are secreted in the proximal tubules. So you can see this is again the blood capillary, this is the renal interstitium and the tubular lumen. Okay, so the secretion will be from here to here. Okay, so many of the organic cations, so metabolic end products like a bile salts, various urates, okay, uric acids, okay, that will be transported, diffused from a blood into the renal interstitium, and then many of the organic cations, they will passively diffuse through its channel into the renal cells, and from the renal cells they will be secreted in the tubular fluid in exchange with the hydrogen mainly. Okay, so there is a organic cation hydrogen exchange or antiporter that will cause the secretion of the many of the organic cations that are metabolic end products. Okay, and certain substances like the para-ammonic hippuric acid, that is secreted by the renal epithelial cell from the proximal tubules. So here the para-ammonic hippuric acid from the blood, it will diffuse into the interstitium, and then from here it will transported transcellularly. Okay, so first step is this para-ammonic hippuric acid will be transported into the renal cells in exchange with the alpha ketoglutarate, and then this will be transported into the tubular lumen in exchange with the any of the anions, or it may also diffuse through the apical membrane into the tubular fluid. Okay, so this is in brief about the secretions of various organic acids and bases in the proximal tubule. So this is the summary of this transport across the proximal tubules. So you know this is the part of the nephron. So it is initial portion of the tubules. That is the proximal tubules, from where the 65% of the solutes and 100% of the glucose and amino acid will be reabsorbed. Okay. So this, suppose this is the tubular lumen, this is the renal epithelial cell. Okay. So maximum of the sodium, chloride, HCO3, potassium, water will be reabsorbed. With that, 100% glucose and amino acid will be reabsorbed. Okay. And there is also secretion of the certain acids, H plus ion, and with that certain organic acids and bases. Okay. So the fluid that will leave this proximal tubules, it is almost isoosmotic. Okay, isoosmotic because here these tubules are reabsorbing the solutes as well as the equal amount of the water also. Okay, so the fluid that will leave these proximal tubules and reach to the descending portion of this loop of the Henle, it will be isoosmotic. So this is all for the today's discussion. The rest of the part of the reabsorption and secretion that we will cover in the next discussion. So thank you.